Your attention please, the CaʒCon Railway West Coastal Line 35 for Seattle is leaving at 7 a.m. from track 1. Thank you.
Pretty excited, man. First time going to Seattle.
Yeah, it's my first bullet train ride. Dude, did you stop by that new Wexler's in the station?
Oh no.
I was on the second floor, right next to the stairs to go down to the platform.
Oh really? Oh, dang it, I missed it. Did you buy some?
I was thinking about it, but I ended up just getting a milkshake instead.
Oh no, it's all good. I heard they have these bento boxes that highlight local eats. You buy them on the mobile app, so try that out.
I wonder if they have clam chowder up in San Francisco.
That'd be nice.
I'm so stoked.
CCRW Coastal Line 35 heading to Seattle is now departing from track 1. Please mind the closing doors. Thank you.
Welcome to the Casual Contemplation Podcast. I'm Philip.
And I'm Casey.
Casey and I were roommates through college, and now we're long-distance friends who rarely get the chance to talk about anything at length.
So, we've created this podcast as a place where we can chat about different hobbies and interests. We're far from experts in anything, but we hope you enjoy our casual take.
Before we get started, as a quick disclaimer, comments made in this podcast is a matter of personal opinion. Also, you may notice some disruptions in the recording. Please keep in mind that we're recording this from 2 different locations. Thanks. So, Phil,
Yeah,
back again for our 4th episode.
good to be back.
This time we'll be focusing on high-speed rail, otherwise known as the bullet train. I think this is a very unique experience. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe a lot of people in the States may have had the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely not if they haven't been outside of the US.
Right. It's very prominent in Japan, Europe, and then recently it's a big thing in China as well. So I know based on some of the research that we've done prior to this podcast that the US is also trying to develop the bullet train here in the West Coast, or rather in California, as well as some efforts in New York. And I think there's some Midwest and also in the South as well. But for many reasons, it hasn't been launched yet at the time of this recording. But because Phil and I, we've had the opportunity to be on bullet trains, we've always wondered what it would be like if we had to develop something like this here in the States. So today in this podcast, we'll be kind of going through our personal experiences, getting on the high-speed rail, and then, as usual, enter CaʒCon workshop with our own take on our high-speed rail.
Sounds good.
So I'll start off with you, Phil. I know you traveled to Japan as well as Europe. What has your experience been?
So the bullet train experience for me has been pretty nice in terms of getting the ticket itself. So in Japan, right, the biggest thing is that for foreigners at least is that Japan Rail Pass, which you don't in those cases, right, you don't really need to reserve a ticket before like you do on an airplane. But what you'll do is you'll have that Japan Rail Pass and you'll go into like a ticketing kiosk and you'll get a ticket for a specific bullet train with that Japan Rail Pass. So that's something that I thought was really convenient about the Japan Rail Pass. And I think in terms of just convenience in general between my experiences in Japan, my experiences in China, my experiences in Europe, the speed at which I'm able to first get the ticket and then board the train is super fast, especially when compared to the airport experience. One thing though, I think that I don't know if you've experienced this, but whenever I traveled with using the bullet train, my luggage was relatively limited. Like there was like in the airport, right? You have like a check-in counter and you can check in your luggage to the airport and you don't have to carry it throughout the rest of your time at the airport.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas in like the bullet train, every bullet train station that I've taken, I'm carrying that piece of luggage around. So, I mean, conveniently for me, most of them had wheels, so it wasn't that big of a pain, but it is something that I feel you have to be aware of more so. But that's my experience with bullet trains, at least from the station experience, just that quickness of being able to get the ticket on the same day and being able to ride the train all within like a few hours tops, or not even a few hours, like an hour if you really wanted to.
So it seems like you've had a pretty positive experience riding the bullet train other than having to carry that big luggage. So has there been a favorite out of the ones that you've been on over the years?
So my personal favorite, it's hard for me to say that one is for me stands out in like the positive way, because I think that all of the bullet train experiences I've had have been just great train experiences. But the Chinese one, it stands out to me because of, not in like the most common fare, but there's no place to smoke on the train, but like the platforms themselves are smoke free. So while I was in China, the bullet train every time the bullet train would get to a stop, you'd see a ton of like business people just fly out of the train and onto the platform and just start smoking packs of cigarettes during the stop. And then when the train's about to go, they all just like put out their cigarettes and come back in.
Do they have a designated spot to smoke, or is it as long as you're outside you can smoke anywhere you want?
The high-speed rail that I was on, it was a case of as long as you were outside on the platform anywhere, you could smoke. So great experiences all around, but outside of that though, I think one of the big differences between the different railway stations is the time that I've actually taken in the station. And what I mean by that is both in Europe and in China, like my duration in the station wasn't really noticeable. It was like a convenience of being able to go from the ticket counter to the bullet train. That was really fast. But I didn't really do too much within the station itself. And if you look at a lot in China right now, there's a lot of development of the railway stations. So a lot of the stations you go to don't really have kind of a lot in them. And I'm not too sure if the idea is to add more event like continuously, because a lot of those stations are new. But at least when I was there, the stations didn't have too much in them. Similar with the European stations, they had like coffee shops here and there to get like a quick espresso or a quick bite to eat. How that contrasts is when I went to Japan, you had like the quick shops, like you had a really quick ramen shop or like noodle udon soba shop, but you also had kind of out a little bit further away from the platforms, you had like these sit-down restaurants that were, I think some of them were actually iconic places that a lot of people, you had like 45-hour-long waits for. And they were all sit-down cuisine. So that was something that I noticed was different between the Japanese railway stations versus the European and Chinese railway stations, just kind of how much there was to do at the railway station. The European stations I've been to are like the German one and the Italian, I forgot which Italian ones I've been to, but the Italian high-speed rail stations. Granted, the European ones, I think, the German one, I think if you went a little bit farther away than where I was kind of stationed around, there was a little bit more food, but I'm not too sure if you consider that still the high-speed rail station or just kind of like this transit center station.
So one thing that I personally have a beef with, not a beef, but find very inconvenient with just train stations in general, and this does apply to like Amtrak as well here in the States.
Yeah.
Especially at Tokyo Station, the intricacy of all these different types of, not just bullet trains or high-speed rail, but also regular local trains. It's very hard navigating through those big stations, right? Did you find that, or for me it was convenient, I don't know how you feel about it, but did you feel that type of difficulty getting around in Europe as well as China?
So the interesting thing about China was that there was really not, when you're at the high-speed rail stations, I think the high-speed rail station is only a high-speed rail station, and it's not a shared platform for other types of rail systems. And I think that's different than in Japan, where the platforms for those high-speed rails are like built into smaller rail stations. So you have you have like a combination of all of these different type of rails going out, railways, high-speed rail, local rail, coming out of those same transit hubs, like Tokyo Station. In Europe, so what I remember is that there's actually one huge platform, and all this rail, like there's like a line of different rails going through there. That one was a little bit confusing, not in terms of navigation, but in terms of which train I'm supposed to take. There were some cases where I wasn't sure if I bought the ticket for the right train, but it got me from one place to the other. So that was a little bit interesting. Like in Germany, I definitely didn't know if I was on the right train for the ticket I bought.
Sorry, you mean like in terms of the direction you're headed? Or
so I bought a specific ticket from like a ticket machine. Okay. But I didn't know if that ticket was for like which class of that train. All of the trains were like on the same platform, so you had like 9 trains across. There's a possibility that like you get on the wrong train.
So it wasn't much, I guess, a language barrier, but more so just a flaw in design.
So for the German one, there was a little bit of a language barrier, for me at least, because again, that's where I probably would have, like, it was only in German, it wasn't in English. So that's where it was difficult for me to say, okay, am I on the right train? Am I on the right class on that right train? On the Italian one, it was kind of the same. I knew I was on the right train. I had confidence I was on the right train. It was just I wasn't sure if I was on the right class.
Okay.
But what about you? Now we've talked about my experience a lot. How about your experience?
So unlike you, Phil, I think my experience is kind of limited to just Japan. I was thinking through my personal experiences. I think a lot of it has to do with nostalgia. So I think I've covered in the podcast in the past that I do have family in Japan. For me, as a kid growing up, riding on bullet train meant going out to Japan to see my family out there. So some of my family lives in the Nagano prefecture. And there used to be a bullet train that ran from Tokyo to Nagano called the Asama Shinkansen. And I guess it's part of Japanese culture to buy gifts before visiting your family members, right? So we would go to Tokyo Station or shops around Tokyo Station, buy something, a food or a present. And then after we've done all that, we'd finally get on the Asama Shinkansen, and this music would play. I did prepare one of the sounds, I guess. Give me a sec here.
本日も北陸新幹線をご利用くださいましてありがとうございます。この電車は浅間号東京行きです。
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board the Hokuriku Shinkansen. This is an Asama Super Express bound for Tokyo.
As I did my research, I was looking up a lot of videos of the bullet trains I've been on in the past. There's some videos on YouTube where they record the sound, the music that they play on these trains. Once I played it, there was all these memories that came to mind of my experiences traveling to Japan.
It's a very delightful sound too. It's not super harsh or generic or very kind of curt. It's a very like long, pleasant melody.
There are composers in Japan, I think, or maybe in the States, I don't know. But at least in Japan, there are composers that focus solely on creating these jingles that play on the train. I think there's an Amazon documentary by James May. It's titled Armin.
Oh, yeah.
It's
he has a whole like Japan series, right?
Yeah. And in one of the episodes, he meets this composer. His name is Minoru Mukaiya. He didn't create this specific one, but a lot of the jingles that you hear on the local trains out there around Tokyo, he used the one that Alex created. So I don't know. I guess this train jingles are part of the Japanese culture as well. I don't know. Yeah, which creates all this nostalgia Yeah, so I guess to kind of sum it up, my personal experiences with Bullet Train is about, I always associate with family, Japan, and childhood memories.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I feel like if I grew up around that, I definitely experienced that. I definitely associate those jingles with my childhood experience as well.
Yeah, I wonder why they don't have those like on the planes. That would be kind of cool.
I mean, I think with the U.S. planes system, like every company is so individualistic, right? And they're always trying to create something new and attractive. I don't think they always harken back to a theme. Like United has like I don't know. That's the most recent one that they make a whole bunch of movies out of. Please edit the actual melody in there.
I thought you were better at singing though.
I'm terrible at singing. I don't know where you got the idea from. Granted, if we ever do start making our own intro, I will gladly lend my vocals.
I'll probably skip on that. Pass on that.
Okay.
So this one?
Yeah.
So I'll stop there just for
It's
copyright reasons.
It's a very long jingle. I don't know if it's not a jingle. It's a very long melody.
It is.
So I think with the US is very accustomed to slogans and just trying to kind of advance its own marketability. So that's probably why. I mean, PlayStation, right? PlayStation has throughout like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, 5, the turning on signal has always changed.
Oh yeah, but PlayStation 1 is so iconic.
PlayStation.
You know what I mean though? Like I think anything that's marketed in the US always has to change. Where I think it doesn't make sense for them to kind of create a jingle that would resonate through the passengers for all time.
Yeah, so speaking of commercials, this is actually one of my inspirations that I got for our CaʒCon workshop design that you guys will see on our Instagram and our blogs when we promote this episode. So in Japan, the Japan Railway, JR, and this commercial came out in 1988. There's a famous artist in Japan, his name is Tatsuro Yamashita, came out, or he has a Christmas song. It's like Mariah Carey of Japan in a sense, because every Christmas they play this song. And it all started with this commercial. So I won't play the whole thing, but essentially it's two long distance couples meeting together on Christmas. And I think people around our age, our parents' age and older, at least in the Japanese population, when they hear about Shinkansen, they kind of associate this commercial and the concept of bullet trains are for people to meet one another, that are long distance family and friends meeting one another for whatever the occasion might be. I don't know.
By the way, that song slaps for all the listeners. We'll put a link up on the Instagram post and I'll put a link up on the WordPress so you could listen to it.
Can you think of any other pop culture references? I know we always do this with our podcast.
Well, I think if everyone's ever watched the first Tom Cruise Mission Impossible, they have a more or less kind of the spoiler alert.
If you don't want to hear the plot synopsis, skip 10 seconds.
The end of the movie culminates with a battle on like a European high-speed rail.
Yeah, a more common one, more recent one that some of your younger listeners might know is Snowpiercer, which although that's not really a positive image of a bullet train, but yeah, kind of like that. Also in the Asian cinema, there's the Korean movie A Train to Busan, again, not a very positive image of a bullet train. And then there's an anime that got a lot of awards called Your Name, which came out in 2017, 18, something like that. That also has a scene.
Yeah, that reminds me, I've also been on the Korean bullet train, and I don't remember it, to be honest, but I have been on it. I've been on it once.
So Phil wants everybody to know that he's been to many, many countries and has been on many bullet trains.
Just some countries, not many. I can't believe that there haven't been that many bullet trains, that many movies featuring bullet trains.
At least in Japanese media, trains and bullet trains are just part of the scene. They don't, so it's not, I think it's, again, it kind of goes back to the nostalgia. Mm-hmm. So Japanese people, everybody from the age of however, like elementary school,
take trains.
So in film and TV shows, like they use the scene of the character being in the bullet train as a reference to like a childhood or the good old days. But it's not where there's a significant plot shift occurs. So I think that's why it's hard to find pop culture references.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I always think about like I think we've talked about this, the whole idea of like the bullet train thing, at least when traveling to Japan or traveling to any of these European countries, just like the event of the bullet train coming into the station, because it looks so weird, and then you have all these collaborations that they have sometimes so that they have like this art on the train. I'm surprised for all of that how little it's really featured in anything, or if it's just kind of like indistinguishable from a normal train on the inside, so that's why.
Any case, yeah, so that's been kind of our personal experiences with the bullet train. We'll take a break and then, as usual, head into our CaʒCon workshop.
Hey Keishi, you got any recommendations for the listeners on how to record their own podcast?
Good question, Phil, because we use Anchor. Have you heard of Anchor?
You know, I've only heard of it through you because you're the one that's uploading all of the podcasts.
Right. Probably because I'm doing all the heavy lifting here. JK.
You really are.
So Anchor is this all-in-one solution that allows you to manage your podcast, either with an app or on the website.
You can also use Anchor to listen to all your favorite podcasts.
That's right. So some of the challenges that everybody goes through when they first start their podcast is managing the whole thing. Some of the challenges that we went through was trying to figure out the recording schedule as well as uploading it on multiple platforms so that there's a lot of visibility, and then seeing the result come in as we trying to figure out who is listening to these episodes.
We don't have that many episodes yet, but we will someday.
That's right. So hopefully we'll have a larger audience in the future.
And you know who to go to with you growing that audience.
Yes, please go to Anchor, Anchor, and you can easily download it on
Play Store or the Apple App Store.
That's right. Some of the key features that we utilize a lot is uploading our episodes on Anchor, which automatically sends it to all our major platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. It's all on there. And also, once we upload it, you always want to see the analytics to see who's listening to our podcast. So you can all do that in this app. So there's a tab in here once you set up your account, and it tracks the number of listens that you get per episode and then in total. And it kind of gives you a chart so you can visually track what's doing well, what's not working. And we can probably just kind of tweak it so that we create episodes that are more enjoyable. So if any of our listeners are looking to start a podcast sometime soon, which website or app should they go to, Phil?
Go ahead and download Anchor by Spotify.
Please check it out, and back to our episode. Hey guys, we're back.
Hello. Now the fun parts.
Just as a reminder to some of our new listeners, this is the last part of a podcast where we take some time to talk about our own designs that we've created specific to each episode. So for this bullet train or the high-speed rail episode, we created a fake railway company. called CaʒCon Railways, CaʒCon Railway West, and it's a homage to the Japan Railways, JR, where they have JR East, West, South, North. Well, actually, I don't think they have North, but anyways, depending on the location. So for ours, because we're from the West Coast, we decided to do from LA, Los Angeles, all the way to Seattle, stopping at Fresno, San Jose, San Francisco, Eugene, Portland, Olympia, and then finally ending at Seattle. So I did some research around this. So between LA and Seattle, the total distance is 1,135 miles. For your European Asian people out there, about 1,800 kilometers. So that's a pretty long distance. As a point of reference, I don't know if this will make sense to a lot of listeners, but the Tokaido Shinkansen that goes from Tokyo, the middle of the country, all the way to Hakata, which is the southern part of the region, that's about 515 kilometers, so about a third of the distance. And that goes from 6 in the morning and then lands at Hakata at 11 p.m. So that's 17 hours total.
Holy smokes.
So with ours, it's basically, with the current technology, it would be a 4-day trip.
Wait,
but I think,
really?
I do need to make a comment here. So the Tokaido Shinkansen has a lot of stops. I think there was like 15, 20 stops in between, whereas ours only has 8 stops with the local version and with the rapid 5 stops. So
no, I was being a little nerdy and trying to figure out how fast I would need to go.
Speed wise?
Yeah. So if we have 4 hours, right? It takes or 8 hours. 8 hours divided by 8. It would need to go 225 miles an hour, which I think is not unheard of for a bullet train. So a bullet train top speed in Japan is 200 miles an hour.
Oh, okay.
So, and that was in 2015.
Oh, okay. Well, that
So
gets
I think,
good.
yeah, I think 8-hour trip from Los Angeles to Seattle, I think is doable within that 8 hours because of how fast bullet trains can go.
Okay. So we're just gonna say it's 8 hours if you take the local version with 8 stops. It's 4 hours if you take the rapid version with only 4 stops.
Yeah, we're not gonna go too nerdy in this.
All right. Cue our CaʒCon jingle. The CaʒCon workshop. And we're back. So for some of our new listeners, before we get into our CaʒCon workshop session, we always set certain guidelines in place to make sure that there's some consistency in our designs and a framework on what we're working on. So specifically with our CaʒCon Railway West design, we're saying that this is all happening maybe 10, 15, 20 years max in the future, where IoT and 5G is part of our daily lives. So in that sense, it's very similar to our previous episode on wearables. And again, just kind of reiterate here, in terms of the speed and the duration. So with the local version, there's 8 stops or 7 stops, takes about 8 hours. With the rapid, there's 4 stops, takes about 4 hours. So you do spend quite a bit of time on the plane. I'm not sorry, on the train. But yeah, for that reason, we kind of focus on the experience of getting on, getting off during the in-train experience, and how we can enhance that in this new world where IoT and 5G is a common thing. Anything else you want to add about the guidelines, Phil?
Yeah, I think not only just IoT and 5G are common, but just knowing what we know now, just kind of building a more modern and enjoyable experience versus kind of a lot of train stations have been created decades ago. So with these guidelines kind of allowing us to use our imagination a bit and trying to, if we had the resources available and the demand was there, to create a high-speed rail station that would be high-speed rail station experience that would be more pleasant for users.
Right, sounds good. And also do want to note, as we kind of mentioned in the intro, there are construction going on to launch a California high-speed rail. There's a lot of challenges associated with that. Just specifically for this podcast, we're going to say that those challenges don't exist, and we can find a way to kind of build this track with a win-win-win situation. I just want to note that before we get started.
Sounds good.
That's good. Before we kind of get into the design, high-level explanation on the areas of focus between Phil and I. Phil kind of focused on the overall onboarding experience, so from the purchasing of the ticket to, I guess, the lounges at the stations and while you wait for the train, whereas I kind of focused on the in-train experience, so the 4 to 8 hours spent on the train and what that may look like in the future. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Keishi. All right, so so as Keishi mentioned, my focus has been kind of everything before you board the train. So first off, I wanted to kind of just say that there would be 2 different types of railway stations. In your more dense areas, so like the station that would be in San Francisco and LA, land is at a premium. So building a station itself would probably not be feasible, and you wouldn't necessarily want to build a standalone station, because it would be far away from everything, and it'd take hours after your train ride to get to any type of city center. So in those stations, or in those situations, the rider would more or less, the high-speed rail would more or less kind of go into an existing transit center. For example, in San Francisco, we have the Salesforce Transit Center, and in Los Angeles, there's the Los Angeles Union Station. So in those cases, it would be more or less kind of like a branch that we'd add on. Obviously, there'd need to be some support from the existing transit stations to allow us to create the separate branch. But that's what because of the property, not value, but the difficulty, or like how difficult it is to come by available land, that's where we need to go. Kind of on the other end of that coin, there are areas like Fresno, Bakersfield, Portland, Seattle, where land is a little bit more available. At those locations, it would be better for the high-speed rail to have its own beneficial kind of station. So that's what I'm looking at, kind of like to start off. Both the Salesforce Transit Center stations, or like the existing branch stations, as well as the high-speed rail stations, would have areas for shuttling to get to like the city center, to get to kind of like the main cities if they're away from the cities. So that would be something that the station would incorporate into them, or the branch or the station itself would incorporate into them. Moving on, I want to throw in common design elements of each station, just because I thought these were cool. So in my own personal experience, some of the ceilings that I've really kind of found interesting are these more or less like lattice ceilings, where they have a lot of openings to bring in natural light to the station. So in Shenzhen, the Shenzhen airport has a lattice roof structure, but there's also, I think, a station, like an actual train station in South America, that has more or less kind of a lattice structure as well, that brings in a lot of natural light during the day. Obviously at night there is lighting to make sure that everything can be seen, but during the day I think the natural light will help a lot with the atmosphere of the station. Okay, so once we've gone to the station, obviously the person needs a ticket. So how does a person get a ticket? I think a couple of common modes for a person to have a ticket nowadays are a mobile app, So we would have our own CaʒCon Railway app that would allow a user to get a ticket, so to purchase a ticket as well as display a ticket. The ticket itself would be in the form of a QR code. I think most railway tickets right now are like magnetic strips, and I think although that would be cool, that would force some kind of physical ticket, which we want, which I think we want to try to get away from, both for environmentalism as well as kind of convenience. Being able to have like a QR code to show and scan would be the best way to go, or at some point in the future where the mobile app, like whatever's beyond the QR code, I think would also be something that we could accommodate in the app. The second type of way to get the ticket would be the website. So we'd have a CaʒCon Railway website, similar, I think, to some European countries. They have their own website where you can purchase a ticket. With that purchasing of a ticket, you can either redeem that, or you can print that out at your own home, or you can redeem that at the station. The third way is kind of a more traditional way, where there'd be a ticketing counter as well that would consist of a combination of digital ticket counters and ticket counters with hosts to kind of walk you through that process. The digital ticket counters would have like a 1-to-3 ratio, so there'd be like 3 kiosks. There'd be one person that would kind of manage all 3 and help anybody with questions, or if they're having trouble, they'd walk through those. But I think a combination of both having people available as well as kind of a digital one, if they're more comfortable on site, is what I would prefer to have.
So I think you mentioned previously on this episode that there were some challenges as a foreigner coming in, navigating these waters. So with our CaʒCon Railway, how would a foreigner purchase a ticket?
So a foreigner would purchase a ticket. I think in Japan they have railway passes that you would go up to the kiosks, whether it be the mobile kiosk, or sorry, not the mobile kiosk, but the digital kiosk or the personal kiosk, and they would be able to provide you with the ticket. But in terms of, that's a good question, because in most high-speed rail, so in the European high-speed rail, I don't remember having to show any kind of passport, but I know that in Japan, you more or less kind of need to show a passport to gain access to the railway system, as well as the Chinese high-speed rail. You do also need that passport as well.
Right.
So in those cases, it would be a situation where you'd have to go to that ticketing counter, or you'd have to be able to scan your passport on the mobile app. And then the high-speed rail company would have that information, and there'd be some kind of check on the other side to make sure that it's valid, and then be able to provide you with that ticket.
Okay.
Hopefully in the future that'll take an insignificant amount of time, so that's not too inconvenient. Because I think the big thing with the high-speed rail is to limit the inconvenience of using it. Right. That's where I think that one of the big advantages of a railway system versus an airplane system would be. Kind of moving on to the tickets as well. One thing that I actually really kind of wanted to do was to have the option for the passenger, if they have the ticket on their mobile app, to get a physical ticket. And one of the reasons that they'd want to get a physical ticket was because some of those tickets might be kind of like limited editions, so they'd have like insignias for like special events. So like the Olympics are coming, or like the 50th anniversary of Pokemon, or what's the big use? Or like the anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge. So we'd be able to have these limited edition tickets that people can collect.
Like that. That's pretty cool.
So moving on from the tickets, one of the big annoyances of the US airplane system is CheckIn. And that's something that at least in the high-speed rails that I've taken, I've never really had to check in. So that's more or less kind of done away with. I just want to make sure that's out there. Kind of moving away from the tickets, kind of getting into like the main station. There are train station lockers. Obviously, this would be most beneficial for tourists who have a really packed schedule and want to be able to kind of go from one place back to the train station to another place, back to the train station, and then lockers would be helpful. And I think that's something that both Japan uses as well as stations in Europe and the US. So moving on to kind of like the ticketing gates, this is where I want to kind of explore more of the aesthetic as well. One of the designs that I saw online and kind of more or less took inspiration from had a combination of both plexiglass panels for the wheelchair or family ticketing gates. And then every other ticketing gate would use some kind of natural, either wooden or recycled compostable material, not compostable, but like some kind of like bamboo material that's environmentally friendly. So I think one design ethos that I would like to have within kind of like all the stations would be kind of to have a lot of the main portions of the station be using like bamboo or wood or kind of like recyclable materials.
Yeah, I feel like recycled plastic sounds better because wood rot over time.
I mean,
no?
Yes and no. Like you can varnish it and it lasts a pretty long time.
Okay. And it's easily breakable. I mean, you can probably...
It depends how thick you put it, right? I mean, you have fireproof doors that are wood.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, I think the whole one of the big ideas behind bringing in kind of like the wooden doors is that, especially kind of more lighter color wooden doors, I think it adds a more friendly environment. In Europe, in the kind of the EU fast pass check-in gates, they have I put this in the document, but they have more or less full length plexiglass borders or like gates, and it doesn't, even though it's very visible, it still doesn't kind of like have an environment of friendliness or invitation.
Yeah, it looks like a scene from a cyberpunk movie.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to do is kind of make a more pleasant environment. Obviously, there's a lot of like cleaning that probably have to be done, but that's something that I think that we'd have to deal with and budget for.
Okay.
So at these stations, I mentioned everything's QR code. So your ticket would have a QR code on it, or again, whichever code in the future we move to, that'd be more or less a visual scan, so that it could be either on the physical ticket or the phone app.
Okay.
And that way we would have to, again, be kind of like having to split between one or two. So that'd be more or less kind of how you get through. And then, so once you get through that ticket gate, you pretty much have access to the platforms whenever you want, or any one of the shops in between inside the ticket gate. So where I want to go from here is I want to talk about kind of the shops that are after the ticket gate, as well as the shops that are before the ticket gate. With that said, the shops that are before the ticketing gate are more shops that you would spend a prolonged period of time in, so probably like more than 15 minutes in. And that includes like local sit-down dining, local shops. Obviously, there'd be kind of like tourism shops, as well as travel agencies within those kind of larger areas, just so that people can talk to you, you can figure out where to go. So that's kind of what the ethos is behind those types of shops that are before the ticketing gate. After the ticketing gate, you get a lot more high throughput shops. And what I mean by that is shops that you're really not supposed to spend any more than 5 minutes in, maybe 10 minutes tops.
Okay.
So like that goes from like the bakeries. So the bakeries are more or less kind of storefronts to sell baked goods at a really high throughput. Any shops, there's no sit-down cuisine. It's more like the pre-made bento boxes that you see in kind of the Japan railways. So I saw this in the video that I was watching while researching this, but they do have like ramen shops that are really high throughput. Like from the point you order to when you get it, the fresh bowl of ramen is like 15 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, or maybe like 30 seconds tops, but it was really fast.
Yeah, Japanese efficiency right there.
Really, yeah. And it's a fresh bowl of ramen. It's not top ramen, like it's quality ramen in a bowl. So yeah, all of the shops it would be standing room only. There wouldn't be any like seating, or there'd be like very minimal seating for like people that have wheelchairs or like elderly to accommodate them. And then there'd be like some convenience storefront. So like if you need batteries or if you need like headphones, something breaks, there'd be like electronic storefronts that you can buy things from. Alternatively, there's your assortment of vending machines, which are even faster, right? You have your drink vending machines, you have your electronics vending machines, a combination of all of those.
So I think your next thing is the platform.
Yeah, so then now we get to kind of my favorite part of the train station experience, or the high-speed rail experience, is the boarding platform. But I guess before we get to the boarding platform, we want to talk about how to get onto the boarding platform. So in terms of how to get on the boarding platform, there's your typical 3 ways of getting onto it. There's the escalator, there is the elevator, and there is the like stairs. But with the escalators, what I want to do is I want to have more or less kind of like flat escalators instead of stepped escalators.
Oh, okay.
And so I think, and this, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like flat escalators do allow for a little bit more accessibility.
Definitely.
So with that said, that's what really kind of what I wanted to open it up, because elevators only have so much throughput. So I wanted to have the escalator be flat to allow for wheelchair accessibility. And I think flat escalators are just safer in general. Although granted, they take a little bit more space, but because we do have our ability to kind of use our imaginations in this is one of the things that I wanted to have. And now we get to the platform itself. So the platform, when I had in mind, there were more or less kind of like 4 pillars that I wanted to really concentrate on. One of them is safety. But the second one is the ability to admire the train aesthetic. The third one is the capability of accommodating a 10-minute train stop. And the fourth one is that it was semi-open air. And so with the boarding platform, again, in order to improve the safety, in order to accommodate passengers that have wheelchairs or any other kind of that may need other assistance, there will be extending ramps from the train door to the platform opening to accommodate accessibility. Also, each of the platforms does have safety gates that open when the train is ready to board and deboard passengers. And so the safety gates, they more or less open and close. So they open when it's time to board, and then they stay closed at all the other times. And what I really wanted to do with these train gates is make them as like compact from the actual non-see-through portion. And the reason I want to do that is because for my experience, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but whenever I travel to Japan, whenever I travel to Europe, when the high-speed rail comes, it's always kind of an event. You admire the way it looks because it's crafted in a way that like mimics nature to allow for it to travel so fast. So as like a work of art, a work of engineering, I think it's something that you really get wowed by. Additionally, there's been some collaborations between the high-speed rail and different pop media. So like there's an Evangelion high-speed rail that I think it's something that you want to accentuate and when the train comes into the station, you want to have in full view. So being able to have these deboarding gates be as small visually as possible is something that I wanted to make sure that was incorporated into my platform design. So moving on from the platform gates, there will be train attendants, just to confirm there's no obstructions. Train is ready to go. If there's any questions, I know, again, I mentioned this earlier with my European experience, it's a bit confusing. So I want to be able to have train attendants on the platforms to help with any confusion. And then I also mentioned this earlier with the Chinese high-speed rail train, that a whole bunch of people just go off the train and start smoking. I don't want to make an unpleasant experience for the people that don't like the smell of smoke. A lot of the US and international areas are smoke-free, but obviously there are some various concerns that cause people to like smoke emphatically when they get off the train or want to smoke while they're on the train. I don't know what those reasons may be. I don't want to...
They're just smokers.
I mean, they're smokers, yeah, okay. But I don't want to... I don't want them to be nervous. So what I'd want to have on those platforms would be designated smoke boxes. That way they have a place designated for them to smoke, but also it minimalizes the impact for the other riders who may not smoke or may be really uncomfortable with people smoking or vaping to kind of enjoy the platform experience. But anyways, because the platforms are able to accommodate like all of these people within a 10-minute rush, you can imagine they're quite wide. Just because they are so wide, I want to play around with what is actually the idea behind the train, a platform, and what you can put on a platform. So platforms, I think for convenience sake, they will have like mini 7-Eleven type kiosks that are manned with humans, and then an assortment of vending machines all through the platform. Obviously, as well, they'll have some digital signage about what station the passengers are currently arriving to, and then upcoming trains, status of trains, etc. There won't be bathrooms because I don't want to have bathroom stops on the platform itself. That's what the train would be for. There would be bathrooms in the stations, but not on the platform.
Parents, make sure to take care of your kids. You need to go to the bathroom before.
Again, there's a lot of space on the platform itself. So with that space, I did want to put like local trees, local vegetation on the platform, clean up the air a bit, provide a pleasant experience for people to kind of be in, especially since the platform itself is semi-open air. What I'd also want to have on that platform is like featured art of local artists. I think one of the things that you can do with a lot of infrastructure is support the local artists. So I want to be able to do that with our platform, as well as just kind of video screens for nearby attractions. And so that would kind of lead into where you go off, where you deplatform beyond the ticking kiosk, and they have those more or less kind of like travel agency kiosks that would be able to help.
All right. Good job, Phil. One of the things I liked was the trees or the plantation in each station. I know that's not really the design per se, but it's part of the experience. And I think I would really appreciate having nature around me.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was kind of like nature itself was a theme that was played into the whole train station experience.
Yeah. So for our listeners, as usual, we will have photos or images that we reference in episode in our blog and our Instagram post. So if you guys could check that out, look at those while you listen to the podcast. I think that would kind of help you create that image in your mind, in your head.
Feel free to also add on to the images if you think that we haven't thought through these well enough. Feel free to make a comment. So Keishi, now that we've talked about the train station, tell us a little bit more about the train itself, the train experience.
Sure. So again, this is in a world where 5G, IoT is part of our daily lives. So similar to, I guess, all the previous episodes that we covered, the autonomous vehicle, as well as the wearables, I kind of focused on the customer experience or the user experience. And I think by this time, everybody will be taking self-driving cars. So they've already gotten used to the convenience of not having to, drive. So I think they would be expecting more out of the in-train entertainment, if you will. So I wanted to kind of focus on that as well. I kind of broke it down into 3 main parts. One focusing on the interior, specifically the seating arrangement. The second one being our mobile app that Phil referenced earlier and what features that would encompass. And then lastly, entertainment. So starting off with the seating arrangement, I kind of broke it down into A, B, and C. The main target for A will be personnel looking to travel, I guess, for business. Services and features, it will be kind of minimal. So the seating will be a little bit more compact. It might have party seating that you can twist the seats so that you're facing each other in case you are a party of 4. Other than that, windows will probably be small, similar to how you would imagine the current planes in today's world. And then Class B target is a mix of business and leisure. So these would be essentially conference rooms or larger rooms to be used by multiple people at the same time. So it would have large windows, spacious seatings facing these windows, and like a table in the middle for you to kind of conjugate amongst your party or your friends or your family, whatever that could be.
That's like the car in Harry Potter, right?
Car in Harry Potter?
You know when they're on the train to go to Hogwarts, they're like the 4 of them are in that car that has like the big window.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay.
And then C will be just focusing on leisure. So it would be large windows, and I might even include a bed in there because these are like 4 to 8 hour train rides. So, you can't always be on your mobile phones or whatever technology you might be in the future. Sometimes you just want to rest while enjoying the view. So for our listeners, I did create the whole seating design. I think Phil will post it on the blog. That kind of gives you an idea. And I did add photos or images that I got from the internet that I did reference. So Class A, again, is for business personnel looking to travel for business, but it will have the essentials that we probably see in today's bullet trains or just trains in general. So there's the bathrooms, a vending machine, storage space, interseating. They'll have compact seatings as well as accessibility for people who might be using wheelchairs. Both are within the same car.
I have a question regarding luggage.
Sure.
How much luggage is maximum? There's like the maximum allowable for a person to bring on, because I think in Japan they're now enforcing like a luggage maximum for certain bullet trains.
Oh, I was imagining a large luggage that you would check in at the airport. So I mean, I don't know what the scale is, but the big ones that you have to carry with both hands.
Okay, so they're still carrying it around the station though? In yours, in your train, right?
Is that not the case with yours?
No, I'm just making sure because those big ones.
Oh yeah. So so the assumption is that unfortunately that part of the train experience doesn't change, or at least coming from LAX or SFO, you have the luggage in your hand. So, but you get to check it in storage. So I was imagining something like a coin locker, but you would pay with your mobile app, which I'll kind of go into later. But you kind of have a designated space. In comparison, I think with today's trains, it's just open space, and then you kind of push your stuff in there, and then when you get out, you have to move other people's stuff around to get to access your own luggage. Yes, and it also does provide a peace of mind knowing that your stuff won't get stolen.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, you said that they use like a coin locker?
Mm-hmm.
Would they get so they'd have like a key that would come out, and so they'd use the key to...
No, I was just thinking everything will be done on the mobile app. So you pay with a mobile app. Well, so I haven't thought this through, but I was thinking you'd be able to unlock or lock the coin locker based on a code that you get, like a 5-digit code, like one of those OTPs. Yeah, so you get something like that to lock your unlock.
Okay.
So those are like the basic features. In addition to that, I think Phil, you had pointed this out while we were doing research, how the design would change in a post-COVID world.
Mm.
In terms of peace of mind, I think we'll have some form of plastic sheet dividers in between seats, which I'm imagining that can be kind of pulled up or down in case you're sitting with your family and friends. I don't think you want that plastic thing to block you from your family members. And then, small things like business grade air purifiers.
Oh, you mean industrial grade?
Oh, sorry, industrial grade. Deep cleaning being done at when the train arrives at each final station. So for us, it would be LA or Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Just one of those things that I guess we kind of made to start thinking of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then moving on to Class B or the group seatings. So the focus on the experience here is a collaborative train riding experience. Mm-hmm. So being with your colleagues, with your friends, riding on the train together. So if you're, I guess, more on the business side, you might use it more as a conference call space, or you might be a busy person, might have to take calls while on the train. So that it would allow for you to do that while enjoying this beautiful view that you have outside your train. So this would be traveling in the West Coast. So I guess you get to see beaches, national parks, our beautiful American nature that everybody loves. And then but it can also be used for leisure as well. So if you're traveling together with the family, the open space and table can be used to play, video games or board games if they still exist 10, 20 years from now. But I guess board games will be more VR, but you get to do whatever you want, whatever the technology is at that time.
You never know. And then, there's board games came back strong these past couple of years.
Yeah. And these will all be open space, so it will have wheelchair accessibility. Mm-hmm. So depending on whatever price you pay, the more you, I guess, unfortunately due to capitalism, the more you pay, the more spacious of a room will get. So I kind of broke it down into 4 different types. I really won't go into the details here for our fans, or I guess our listeners. Hopefully you can look at our blog post. But with the higher price range ones, there's beds in there, so I think you can sleep or take naps in between.
Sign me up for one of those.
It's gonna be $300.
You get a discount being the creator of it, right?
No.
What the heck?
Technically, I'm the creator, so I get a discount.
Get me a discount.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
And then there's Class C, which is also for leisure, but you have individual seats, but more spacious than Class A. There's 2 variations I'm thinking of. To be honest, I haven't concluded at the time of this podcast. The first one being a very simple, quote-unquote, first class seat or business class seat that you'd see on planes, where it's the same design as the class, or the regular seats, for the lack of a better word, but have more leg space. It's you can recline, things like that. And, the other kind of design I was thinking of was a modern sleek design, where one side of the train will be facing forward, whereas the other side of the train would be kind of facing inward, and you had tables there, so you can actually do work or watch a movie or enjoy the in-train entertainment. I'm assuming VR will be a thing, so more space means you can kind of stand and play your VR games while sitting VR games they can enjoy.
You're gonna have a VR centric rooms as well.
I thought about having a designated VR space, but unless you rent that space out, I don't think there's a really economic reason to put that in there. So
it'd be cool. On cruises they have like designated like arcades.
Yeah,
but I guess that'd be kind of weird.
Maybe if you do a partnership with a game company similar to, I think you mentioned the Evangelion design. I think with that there was a designated room where there was like Evangelion related models or something like that the customer can check out.
Oh, you have like an Xbox one since we're going to Seattle.
Oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So with the mobile app, I came up with 3 main kind of components. One being the payment experience, which I think Phil touched upon a little bit earlier, with the ordering the tickets ahead and paying or scanning the QR code to get inside. The second component being checking your transit information. And the third one being the most important one, creating our CCR West ecosystem, where you can kind of get your mileage point system up to enjoy additional benefits. So with the payment, it's pretty straightforward. It's something that you'll probably see even today. So I do sound repetitive here, but ordering tickets, but also ordering food in advance, which is something that Phil and I came up with, which I think is pretty cool. Humble brag here. I guess we will work with local restaurants that are stationed, I guess, in the station at each spot. So you, while on the train, you can either order pickup for takeaway or for takeout, or order ahead and actually eat at the stations. Granted, you only have 15 minutes or so you gotta eat fast. But it's like a combination of the food delivery service that we see today, but that's all done inside the train. And then other features or other ways you could use the payment, the mobile QR code is purchasing food in the vending machines that I mentioned earlier, as well as booking or paying for lockers inside the train to store your luggage. And then also maybe paying for in-train entertainment, so similar to the planes, maybe you get to watch movies or enjoy VR games. And then one thing I was thinking was a feature not to order food in advance, but order local goods and foods and ship it to your home or your designated address. So that's all part of kind of working with the local business and supporting local businesses and kind of enhancing that experience. So I'm not sure if this would work for international customers. I don't think shipping stuff internationally would be a struggle. So our main focus might be, local American or local, Americans that are traveling. But kind of bringing back that experience back to their home. So maybe you're traveling from LA to Seattle, you enjoy something in Portland that you just want to enjoy back in California. So on the train way back home, you can order stuff and then ship it to your home.
Yeah, or maybe even they can, if they can't make all the places, but they want to still eat all local food, they can do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. The second one I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit boring, but check-in for transit information. So one thing that I think a lot of people stress out is, ETA when there's delays, as well as making sure that they know where to transit between public transportation. So all that information will be stored in the app. And I did create the user experience for all this, so you can also see that on the blog post as well. And then in the last feature for the transit version is by selecting each station, it would open a pop-up, gives you quick facts about each station, so destinations, places to visit, local eats, as well as kind of going back to that order ahead feature that I mentioned earlier. And then lastly, the CCR West ecosystem. So I was thinking, depending on how dedicated of a user you are, you can get mileage or you have mileage or point systems in place, whereby by adding up the points or the mileage, you get discounts on future ticket purchases or in-app purchases that you make. So I'm hoping that would kind of entice people to kind of come back and make CCR West like their designated choice of travel.
So does that mean if they have the app, even if they don't ride the train, they can order food to wherever they want?
For now, I was thinking of limiting the experience to the individuals that are on the train. So I was imagining it to be features that can be used only while riding the train. And the last part is entertainment. So I have a lot of ideas about this. So I'll kind of break it down into category. Some of it will be to support the local business, and others will simply just be enhancing the experience of riding the train. In terms of supporting the local businesses, I was thinking of playing documentaries or ad placements that you get to see while you're on the train, similar to your current plane experience, to have a small screen or on the back of the seat in front of you. So you'd see ad placements that are being played, and then you get to kind of with that touchscreen, you can get to do some research about the local eats at the destination you're looking to go to. And again, going back to the mobile app feature, ordering stuff to your home.
Are there
And then
only
also-
gonna be video documentaries, or is it going to be kind of like more similar to a plain experience where there's like movies and whatnot?
Yes, I was also thinking of movies as well as the VR experience that I mentioned earlier. So I don't know what what our movie experience or our VR experience will be in 10, 20 years from now. But maybe you select, you purchase it on the screen that is in front of you. It links with, I don't know, your smartphone that you have in your hand, and you get to entertain yourself while you're on the train, which I think will be helpful for parents with little kids. I'm pretty sure 4 to 8 hours on a train is pretty boring.
Yeah.
And then another thing I was thinking of, serving food and alcohol. So for example, I know Napa Valley is it's not a stop that we have, but it's between LA and Seattle. So you could serve wine from the local wineries in Napa Valley. That kind of creates a more enjoyable experience. Granted, I think there will be a limit on the number of glasses you can drink, so that we don't have drunk people starting out fights and things like that. But it's also Central California has some wine spots. So if some of our listeners are more familiar with the Pacific Northwest, I'm pretty sure you guys will know local food expositions that you can enjoy there. So that could be also businesses that we incorporate into the experiences as well. And I know in Japan they have stamp rallies. I don't think they have it for bullet trains, but at least with local trains, they have stamp rallies where kids can get a stamp at each station. And then when you present that to the conductor or something at the final destination, they get a small gift, toy, things like that. So I was hoping maybe for kids, if they use the app to check in at each station, they get a reward, a discount, a toy, something like that.
That's cool.
And travel packages and pricing, there'll be like a California package. So it will be just travel between LA to San Francisco, a Pacific Northwest package that kind of focuses on Portland, Seattle, and then a total package for those that are looking to go from LA all the way up to Seattle. So by getting that package purchase, you get discounts on the ticket price, possible lounge access. I don't know if you have that in your station designs, and then discount on food orders.
I do not have lounge, but that seems like an awesome one. One thing I was going to do was actually like sleep capsules.
Okay.
But I did not follow through with that because I couldn't tell whether or not that would be very, very valuable on the train station.
1, 2, 3.
All right, so that concludes our casual contemplation railway West design. What do you guys think?
Well, tell us what you think in the comments on our podcast or on our Instagram or WordPress. But Keishi, with all of these kind of imaginations on the railway concept or high-speed rail concept, what is the question that you'd like to pose to the listeners, or a thought that you'd like to leave with the listeners?
I hope the listeners got excited about the high-speed rail experience. And, if you have not had the opportunity to get in one yet, I definitely would recommend people to explore outside the States for now, I guess. Go to Europe, go to China, go to other Asian countries, and Korea, Japan, and check it out.
Yeah.
I think, granted, I've only been to one country, but I'm pretty sure each country has its own flavor. So you'll get to experience a different type of high-speed rail at each spot. And, maybe if you decide to create your own experience that you'd like to share with us, that would incorporate your personal experiences. That might create a better experience than what we created. So we're definitely looking for our listeners to provide us feedback.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is Casual Contemplation Podcast, all one word. And our blog is Casual Contemplation contemplationpodcast.wordpress.com. Hope to hear from you soon.
We'll catch you guys on the next episode, which is on theme parks. You guys get hype for that episode, please. Please.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.